Welcome to the Northern Leaders podcast and our latest episode of shining the light on people who made the North a better place. And our guest today most definitely does that. Lisa Morton, founder and CEO of Roland Dransfield. Now, Lisa's probably one of the most familiar faces in the North, in Manchester's PR world and the Northwest's PR world as well. She's got a black book to die for, which I'm rather hoping at one stage she will hand over to me. She's spoken about her career, spoken about her family, the balance as well. And she also speaks about issues like sexism and some of the issues of misogyny that she's had to deal with in her career and how she's trying to change things for the current and the next generation as well. I'm slightly nervous about doing this podcast because Lisa is a veteran of podcasts. She hosts her own successful podcast called We Built This City to celebrate the city's fantastic Mancunians. I'm looking forward to interviewing Lisa, but before then, a word about our sponsors. This episode of the Northern Leaders podcast is sponsored by Open Rain. Open Rain is a training business that harnesses the power of AI to deliver human-led training. They're creating courses and qualifications for the health and social care sector and the very specialist area of indoor environmental quality, IEQ. Everybody deserves to breathe clean air. Welcome to the Northern Leaders podcast, Lisa.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Well, can I just say that how do you feel being on that side of the table answering questions from me?
Uncomfortable.
Okay. You're making me uncomfortable.
Not just you, not because it's you.
No, I agree because I'm used to asking questions. So when I did a podcast recently, I felt really uncomfortable as well. But you just have to put on a different facade. And we always start the podcast with the same two questions. The first question is, what does the North mean to you?
Well, the North has kind of created my values as a person. I was born in Manchester and then I was driven very quickly to Salford, where I grew up. And then my whole career's been in Manchester. And for me, I think it's a place where if you've got some talent, there's people around to help you. And that for me in my career, I think if I've set out an ambition, because Manchester's known for collaboration, there's a lot of people who'll kind of come on the journey with you.
And this is the Northern Leaders podcast. So you define what the North means to you. How do you define leadership?
Well, leadership, one of our values is leaders create leaders. And for me, leadership is about bringing on other leaders. It's not hierarchical. And I really found that in lockdown when, in actual fact, when we removed the structure of an office and everybody was at home on a screen, people came forward, young people with very little experience actually came through and really shone and became leaders through that time because there was actually no toolkit. There was no toolkit as such. So for me, it's about empowering other people and also setting a vision which rewards people professionally and personally themselves. So they actually, their lives are enriched by whatever goal it is you're aiming for.
We're going to talk about your values in a minute. We're also going to talk about Roland Dransfield and that story because you're 29 years old. Roland Dransfield's 29 years old.
I'm not 29
Absolutely.
yet.
We wish we all were. But I'm going to take you back to the beginning in your childhood. Born in Manchester, grew up in Salford. What was your childhood like? Just paint a picture for the benefit of our listeners.
Yeah, it was a loving working class family and community. And we lived 2 doors from the school. Everyone's back door was open and it was literally, if you needed some sugar or a cup of milk, that was the community we lived in.
We need some northern music playing at this bit, don't we? Because it does sound like that.
My mum was a bit of a snob, so she wasn't quite keen to have her back door open the whole time. Yeah. So, but it was lovely. I mean, and we all played out and we went out in the summer and came back late at night when our parents were shouting us. And yeah, it was amazing.
And I don't want to get, similar, era to you, but we didn't have mobile phones then, did we?
We did not.
Your mum would come to the back door and shout, dinner time, and you'd come running, wouldn't you?
All the neighbours would shout, your mum's looking for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were great days. What did because your dad was quite entrepreneurial, what did your parents do?
Yeah, so my dad was a mechanic and my mum was a stay-at-home mum and looked after us and then went on to kind of support dad in his business. But my dad was, there's a guy that lived opposite my grandma who knew my dad. And he's quite a bit older than dad. And he was like a rag to riches Salford story. He had his own business. And he saw something in my dad, offered him a job in a business that was called R. Dransfield Engineers. Yeah. His name was Roland Dransfield. So, there's a story right behind there because basically Roland changed our lives. He gave my dad a job, commission only, but dad made a big success of that and we went on to create lots of opportunities for me and my brother really in terms of lifting us from the community potentially we were in at the time.
We're going to talk about the Roland Dransfield, the business,
Yeah.
in a minute. But I'm just fascinated by the story and Roland Dransfield, the person, because he had a big impact, not on just on your dad's life, but on your life too, because he set you up in business, didn't he? Because you're only 8 years of age.
Yeah.
And it's just such a really good life lesson. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So he always used to say when I was little that, you should have your own business. And I think from him, I always knew that I would. So I never, back in the day, as a girl, I suppose, you were going to be a nurse or a teacher, or, you weren't really, I didn't see other women with their own businesses. But one day he came to our house with a bucket and a sponge, and he said, right, you've got a car washing round now.
You're 8 years of age?
Yeah. And he said, you got to pay me back for the bucket and the sponge. But to this day, we don't know what that was. But I did pay him back because he then taught me about profit. And if it was in profit, if not, I had to go and wash some more cars the following week and pay him back. And I went on to have a car washing round then till I was 15. And I had employees. So if I needed to, if I was on holiday or something like that, one of my mates would do the round. But he taught me about repeat customers, repeat business. It's easy to retain a client than it is to go and have to find new customers every week. He taught me about attention to detail, like make sure you do the wheel rims because that's going to annoy people. And he also taught me about raising your prices on the back of good performance every year. So I got a lot of my early entrepreneurial lessons from him.
I was just going to say that the business might be different and that might be perceived as being just a childhood thing, but the lessons you learn from that, you apply into your modern business. I'm always, raising prices is something that I don't do easily, because will I lose a business customer? The point you also make about it's so hard to regain a customer who you've lost back. I've always said that in my industry, in newspapers, but there was this big move to get new customers. And I said, if you get new customers at the detriment of your existing customers, if you offer people crazy discounts to become a new customer, your existing customer base will be really annoyed by that and they'll vote with their feet as well. So do you still wash cars today in your spare time? Do you still wash your own car?
I do not.
Do you know? Now, if you said
it needs a wash, actually.
If you said otherwise, I would have been surprised. So, okay. So you did you have like a black book of rounds? Did you have a lot of like 30 or 40 cars that you would clean on a regular basis, just on a rota basis?
Yeah, it was, and I learnt referrals. So referrals straight away, do a good job and they go, so-and-so down the road. And then, so yeah, I mean, and then even when we moved house, because we're in Swinton now, and we actually moved up to not far from here when I was about 11 or 12. So I moved the round up here and then had to build new customers because I was too far to walk to my old ones. So, and there was always one lady who, without fail, always paid me double what everybody else did. So I did a special job for her.
It seems like a strange question to ask, because you've got a daughter in her 20s and I've got a couple of daughters in my 20s as well. The idea of a girl at 8, 9, 10, 11, knocking on doors, offering to clean people's cars, you almost imagine the world we live in now, that wouldn't be frowned upon. I
don't know. I came round the corner near my house the other day and I saw a young lad and he was clearly washing some cars. And I just thought, it's a good lesson I'm not saying my kids wash cars, but they did sell stuff. They did go and do table sales and they did, make stuff and sell it at school. So I think, you've just got to go out and earn your pocket money, haven't you?
My youngest daughter is 22. When she was 12, she used to make corner bookmarks at school. And she used to nick the IP off Disney or Pixar, and then she'd sell them at school for 5p. And then she gave them to me and she said, Dad, she said, you work with people who are richer than the people at school. Can you sell these at your events? And I said, yeah. And then Paul Googe, who sold Playdemic, gave me 20 quid to give to her because he loved the idea. And I gave her this 20 quid and she was absolutely made up. And she worked out how many of these bookmarks she would have to sell to get 20 quid at school. And she said, right, so I'm going to increase my prices and I'm going to make you my official salesperson.
Oh, God, okay.
But it was
that's another job.
It was that lesson at that age I thought was so telling. You said that you used to sell anything that wasn't nailed down. So you're always entrepreneurial. So give us other examples of your entrepreneurial flair. And what were you spending the money on?
Well, I started spending money on shoes, which is why I actually got rid of the car washing round in the end and went to work in a shoe shop when I was 15. But I used to sell table sales, and we were just out a few doors down from school. So some of the parents would come by, toys and stuff that I wasn't using. But then Uncle Arthur over the road, he used to grow...
Was he really an uncle, or was he just called
No,
Uncle
everyone was
Arthur?
called Uncle. He wasn't an uncle. And so Beryl and Arthur over the road. He used to grow lettuces, and
Yeah.
so the ones that are a bit dodgy, that didn't look great, they had them obviously to eat. He used to give them to me, and I used to make lettuce butties and sell them to the kids on the way after school with salt. I don't know. We used to put them in a bowl with salt, and then So anything I could sell, I'd do. I'd sell.
We had a nursery at the back of our house. It was Robert Ruffle was the lad whose parents ran it, and we sold all their stuff, but we sold their good stuff and their not so good stuff on the back of a Silver Cross pram. And then people complained because the cucumbers were, soft, and the lettuce had insects in them.
I remember one lesson that I did learn was about supply and demand, and I can't remember. I think it was the summer of '77, and I used to sell. I don't know why, but we used to sell like for a couple of pennies, ladybirds in boxes, in matchboxes, but used to punch the holes in.
Yeah.
And that summer there was an absolute like deluge of ladybirds. They were everywhere, and I realised that I wasn't selling them because you could get them anywhere.
So you'd actually you'd get the little insect, put it in a matchbox, and sell it.
Yeah.
Right. You really were business savvy. So let's fast forward to your first job as a one-man based PR marketing business. So what was it about marketing, Lisa, that attracted you to the sector?
Well, I got a job in advertising when I was at university, and I went for the induction and realised that wasn't for me, because it was also, back in the day, there were no flat vowels in London, and it was Sloanes, I suppose.
Yeah.
It was some rich kids smoking Marlboro menthols, and it wasn't for me. But moreover, I realised that in advertising I was going to be an account handler, and I wanted to be creative. So I thought PR was about writing, and I'd always written. I loved writing, creative writing as a kid. And I understood that it was about building relationships, and I liked people. So that's how I got into PR. And I worked for a couple of small agencies, and then set my own business up on my own, but quickly took an employee on within about 3 months, a team member.
I might get the timing wrong in terms of, I think you set the business up when you were like 28. And you had 2 young children, either just before or just after or over that period of time.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask you is that you can't be what you can't see. And I know you're very much a champion now, and you've spoken out about certain things as well. But because you split up with your husband as well at a similar time, these things tend to happen like London buses. They come along at once. You have 2 children, 2 young children under the age. I think they were 22 months apart, wasn't there, between your son and your daughter? You've launched a business. You're in your late 20s. You split up with your husband as well. What was that period of your life like? Because the idea of maternity leave probably didn't exist much, did it?
Well, it did, but it was, it's your own business. That's all bets are off, aren't they? Anyway, so I think then you still got 3 months paid maternity, but I didn't, and I didn't with Alex, my first, but I probably got 6 weeks off. And then with Nina, I really wanted to have some more time. I wanted to see if I could get 3 months, because by then technology was a bit basic, but we did at least have, if not dial-up internet, we did have emails.
Happy days.
Oh my goodness. So, but then, the day I gave birth to Nina, I was told that the person who had promoted in the business had resigned that day and had pre-planned to do that, and was trying to rip out my clients and the team by an agency that had set up from London and was setting up in Manchester. And I also knew I knew that my marriage wasn't gonna last very long. So it was absolutely terrifying.
That must be a bittersweet moment though, where you're having a baby, having Nina. You've got all these things going on in your life in terms of with your business and your personal life as well. You must be a very strong person. And I don't know if you get that from your parents. I don't know if that's where you get that stock from. But how did you get through the other side of that? Because you went back to work 3 days after Nina was born.
I did. I mean, and just to qualify, I didn't work the full day.
No. Oh, that's okay
because
then.
I was, well, I'll be honest with you, I was still breastfeeding, and I wanted to do that. So I had to make sure that I was kind of able to manage that. And I had to I took a nanny on, because I had no way of, but it was terrifying, because I thought, I'm going to lose, if I lose the business, I have got no way of feeding my kids. What do I do?
Yeah.
And, but there was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame, and it was absolutely exhausting.
Yeah.
So it was a really difficult time. And I would say there's a special place in hell for women who do that to another woman.
Yeah. No, it's funny because how many women I've spoken to who talk about the fact that their biggest critics are other women and not men. And like as a man myself, I find that hard, to understand. But more than one person that I've spoken to has said that. You decided to call your business Roland Dransfield, which I remember the first time I came to Manchester, which was like 20 years ago, and I came across, Roland Dransfield and Lisa Morton, and I thought, Roland Dransfield, what's that? Like that. So why did you decide to call your business after somebody who had a big impact on your life? It's just an unusual choice of name.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is I did really want to honour that story because arguably without that car washing round and some of those early lessons and the confidence that I built up around, I didn't see it as running a business back then, but the confidence I built up in terms of dealing with people, I wanted to honour that. But also it was our Dransfield engineers, and that had run for quite a long time until my dad, then Roland, retired, and then Dad had a business on Trinity Way in Salford, a big engineering business. So that went on the shelf, that business. So it traded from 1974. So practically also I had, we need to get a lease, need to get a car. There was a business in existence. And the other name I'd thought of at the time was Public Image Limited, which I did quite like. But when I did a bit of market research on it, I think it was quite edgy. And in truth, having Roland Dransfield, having a man's name in my business really did help.
Yeah, well,
to make people feel confident in it because they thought there was a bloke behind it.
Well, because people used to ring up Roland Dransfield and ask to speak to Mr. Dransfield, didn't they?
Yeah.
And what did he say? He's not here at the moment. I'll
I said
speak
he'd
to
be
you.
lucky. He passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we do get kind of speak to Mr. Roland or Mr. Dransfield now, even.
I want to talk about a couple of areas which have had a big impact on your life that you've spoken about subsequently. Sexism and misogyny and the sort of experiences that you've had. Now, 29 years ago, it was, I would imagine, I speak from my own experiences, it seemed a lot worse then. It's not great now. But you took part in a round table that I hosted as part of International Women's Day. And we went around the table and everyone was sharing these stories, these horror stories. And there was only one other man in the room other than myself, Chris Stott at KPMG, and there were like 15 successful women there. And you said that you walked into meetings and you get a round of applause.
It's not funny. I got cheered. I went to a big board meeting and got cheered when I was about 22,
and you're talking about some of the other experiences you've had. So just tell us about, if you're okay talking about it, about some of those experiences, that aspect of your life. You spent a number of years at MIPIM, big property event in the south of France, which you have to go to if you work in the sector that you do.
Yeah. I think as a young woman, before I even got into the work, when I look back and really think about what it was like for a young woman back then, there's a huge amount of sexual harassment and prejudice and some encounters that you kind of brushed aside, but in actual fact were horrendous. I've gone home from events before now, cried my eyes out when I was younger, because you sometimes felt that you were there as to add some, what's the word? You weren't there in a professional capacity. That's what it felt like sometimes back in the day. And I remember a client was put through to me, and I thought he's phoned me up about a press release. And he said, we're shooting a music video this weekend. Would you be happy to come along and lie naked on a slab? And that was considered okay. Okay, we're talking about probably when I was mid-20s. So, and then MIPIM, it was interesting. I mean, it's very different now, very different. But yeah, there was some real, you could see it. There was almost felt like there's a lot of male predators around at MIPIM. And interestingly, just had the Cannes Lion, the advertising exhibition, and there was a piece on LinkedIn, I don't know if you saw it, where there was some safe space tents for women. So we're talking about in 2025. So the optics on that. So I do think it's a huge amount better now. And I don't think that's just because I'm older and because I've got more professional clout than I had back then. But it's not completely sorted itself out.
No, I would agree. I look at it retrospectively and think of things, I look back now and think, okay, times have changed. If I ever saw anything that I vehemently disagreed with, because I was brought up, I'm old school. You know, mum and dad brought me up with values. Everybody, you treat them exactly the same as yourself. You know, you don't look at people's, gender or their ethnicity. You just treat them as equals. Okay. So if I ever saw anything, I would have said something about it as well. But did you ever feel able to speak out about it, or as a young woman running a business, juggling, etc., etc.? And you mentioned about that client who made that outrageous comment about, appearing naked on a slab. They're a client. Did you ever speak out at the time where you believed at the time? If you could go back, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, well, one thing I definitely would do differently is I would take I went to give an award out that I paid a lot of money for at a business awards in a room full of 1,500 people, probably 1,200 at least were men. The compere, who was a well-known TV personality, made a comment about oral sex while I was on the stage.
Yeah.
Now I would take the mic off them and tell them exactly what I thought of them. But then, and maybe that was 20 years ago, well, probably less than 20 years ago in actual fact, you didn't feel, and I brought that up with the organisers. And you'd now like to think that the MC would be dragged off the stage and that people start throwing bread rolls at him. At least that Barrett was just laughed off in the moment, and it was incredibly humiliating.
No, and incredibly painful. And the thing is that even talking about it 10, 15, 20 years after the event, the rawness is still there. I'm going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your hit podcast. We're also going to talk about the way you look after your staff now, which I know from first-hand experience. So we're going to go for a quick break. So welcome back to the Northern Leaders podcast. I'm joined by Lisa Morton of Roland Dransfield, which is 29 years old. We've spoken just before the break about your experiences of being a woman in business. Some good things, some bad things, some difficult things as well. I went to see the team recently. It's largely a female-led team as well. You've got a son who's a giant of a man. He's about 6'6", if I remember rightly, and used to keep tarantulas. And you've got a daughter who is a very, very, very talented singer as well. As somebody who has been around and been in the sector for quite a long time as well, do you see yourself as being a protector of them, a role model to them? If the stuff that you put up with and didn't say anything, if something was said to one of those people, if a client phoned you up now, one of your members of the team, and asked them to do something, or with your daughter, do you treat it differently now?
Yeah, and that incident that happened, I was working for somebody else, and I think I did tell, who was a woman, and I did tell them, but it was just kind of laughed off back then. But yeah, of course, and I'll be honest, it doesn't happen. It hardly ever happens now, which is great. Something happened not long ago, which was not with the client, and the team know that it's not acceptable. I mean, we have those values that are in place for a reason, and we would never allow behaviour towards any of the team that makes them feel anything other than safe and respected. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and that would be applied to your staff as well when they're dealing with people as well. It's just trying to raise the bar. This is the Northern Leaders podcast, and if I went on your mobile phone and I looked down your contacts list, I would see some really, really, really impressive names. Okay. So for the benefit of the people who are listening, I'm going to pretend to have grabbed your mobile phone and to look down that list of names. But just tell me what they're like, okay, if that's okay. So I'll start with Gary Neville, okay. Gary Neville, who I think his most successful career will be the one after football, and he had a stellar football career as well. The St. Michael's development is huge in Manchester. He's got his fingers in more pies than I think he's got fingers, quite frankly, and more pies and pasties and cars pasties. What's Gary Neville like?
He's a really kind person. He's been extremely supportive. We've done a lot of work with Gary, but beyond that, he has the time of day for you. And I remember in the COVID, the pandemic, we had, not only did he invite me on their team's lockdown Zoom fitness classes, which was hilarious, but we chatted quite a few things through because, as I said before, there was no toolkit for what was going on then. He his team love him. His mantras, I know you discussed on this podcast before, attack the day. That's exactly what he does. I feel like he leaves no stone unturned, but he doesn't forget, and he delivers on what he delivers on what he say he'll do. He's been massively supportive to my kids. He gave Nina, my daughter, a residency in Stock Exchange that she supported her as a young musician. So yeah, I think I've got a lot of time for him.
Yeah, I mean, his business is called Relentless, and he is relentless as well. I always think with him that he absolutely maximises every ounce of talent that he's got to get the best result as well, and he works harder than anybody else I know as well. And but you can just put him in any situation and he seems to thrive in it, even if I'm not sure necessarily that sits comfortably with him, you know, in terms of, because he's not particularly, I don't think, a gregarious character. I think he can, I mean, you would know him better than me, but I think he's somebody who can just, you can put him in most situations and he'll find a way of because he's such a good speaker, such a good communicator, isn't he? Another name I'm going to throw at you, Mike Ingle, CEO of Allied London, behind the St. John's development in Manchester. I've got to know him over the years as well. What's he like?
Maverick, kind of genius, creative. I mean, similar people like that make things happen. They never stop, do they? And you know, Mike, I've got Mike on the podcast, and he's actually Mank. He'd come on if he's Mank 100, so that says it. But you know, you look at him, you know what he's changed our city, he's changed the face of Manchester, he's created new neighbourhoods, he's created opportunities, and he doesn't stop. He's always thinking about how he can better something, and he's interested in the detail, which is, you know, after 30 years, I mean, that's pretty amazing, really.
Yeah, well, he's the guy who brought Spinningfields to Manchester. The whole concept behind Northern Leaders was sparked by the death of Sir Howard Bernstein. We're recording this literally on the first anniversary of his death as well. You'd have had plenty of dealings with Sir Howard. What was Sir Howard like?
Well, obviously, it was considered with Sir Howard and Sir Richard at the helm as a benign dictatorship, wasn't it? So it was, you know, they got stuff done and they had a way of doing things. And, you know, there was some criticism of that. If you weren't in the club, then there were some people who felt very much kind of very miffed that they weren't part of possibly what was going on at the time. But I remember it was in the middle of the banking crisis, which was horrendous, 2008, 2009 probably. And I was on the train going down to London, and I hadn't realised he was on the train too. And when the train got to Euston, he was walking down towards me, and I saw him, and he said, "Aren't you an Isle of? Are you still holding on? Are you in there?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Just keep going, you'll be fine." And just that, you know, that encouragement meant a lot. And Howard would stop on the street and chat to people. So I think he did have a real human touch. And you were at his memorial service this time was it November last year? Yeah. That was full of so many people whose lives it had an impact on.
If the measure of somebody's legacy is the quality of people who attend your memorial service, he's in the top 0.01%.
Absolutely.
It was an absolute A to Z of who's who. You know, and also the stuff I like is the unguarded stuff, not the stuff where people stand in front of a microphone and say all the right platitudes, but as soon as the camera turns off, they're out the door and they're not interested. And none of those people that you mentioned are like that. Okay, so
you can ask me about Allman.
Who
you can ask me about a female.
That's a very good point, actually, because I'm going to ask you a question at the end in terms of who are the females that you most admire. Okay. Let me but that's a really good point, because it's right that you should hold me to account. I will throw one name at you then. Okay, somebody that I met recently and I thought was very impressive, Bev Craig, the leader of Manchester City Council. She's hugely passionate. What would you say about Bev Craig?
I think she's incredible. I think she's the best speaker I've ever heard. The way that she
was the best speaker.
She's the best speaker I've heard. In terms of how she can get passionately create a moment and bring you along with her vision. I think she's incredible. I think her personal touch is amazing. And I think the combination of Bev Craig and the new CEO of Manchester City Council, Tom Stannard, I think is a very people-first administration. And you can see that in the recent launch of the Our Manchester strategy. that for the next 10 years, I feel that we've got the right people in the city at the right time.
Well, and the thing about Tom Stannard, who I know, who's, hugely talented, and he did a really good job at Salford Council as well. He's earned his stripes, if you like. They're both incredibly young for the positions that they're in. I'll be honest with you, everyone seems young to me now, but but you look at them and you say to yourself, well, actually, because Sir Howard was all about bringing through young leaders, and they are two young leaders, and you could almost see that sort of Sir Richard Lee's, Sir Howard Bernstein axis living out through them for years to come. It's quite exciting.
A good succession strategy.
I can't put it off any longer. I'm going to have to talk to you about your hit podcast, which has been going now about 4 years, I think.
5.
Well, we built this city. So where did the idea come from?
Well, I was ill in bed in the November, so that would have been 2019. And it's when you get time to be creative. And I just was thinking that I wanted to create something that was a legacy, a celebration of, and gratitude as well, also, I think, to this city and Greater Manchester, where I've lived and I've worked, and to to talk about the collaboration and the legacy and purpose of Greater Mancunians. So I didn't know how to do a podcast, and again,
I'm not sure I did, to be honest with you, Lisa. But
yeah, you're doing all right. Yeah. And somebody, again, like relationships in Manchester, a friend of mine, Sarah Collins, who was then a head of sport at BBC Radio Manchester, said my mate Kate Cocker, she's kind of got a radio background, she could help you. And I remember Kate coming in, and I wanted to call it We Built This City. And so we hit it off straight away. We've subsequently gone on to create a podcast company together. So we produce podcasts too. And then I knew what I wanted it to be. And then I'd recorded the first 3 episodes. And then we're going to launch it in April. And it was going to be with a live record with Gary Neville at Stock Exchange. And that's when we thought, he phoned me up and he went, it's all getting a bit moody. So we're literally going into lockdown. So we had to cancel the event. And then I launched it, I think, a week into lockdown. And it took off because everyone, I think in Manchester, when we got the time of crisis, people come together. We couldn't. Yeah. So everyone wanted to listen to those stories and how people were navigating the pandemic.
Yeah. And then, you've done like 98 episodes so far. And how do you pick your guests? And also, if I was to, it's a completely unfair question and one that you won't have had a chance to prepare for, based on all the people you've interviewed over the years, okay, if you had to have a dinner party, who would you want at that dinner party? Give us some of the. I like the lady who was on Coronation Street.
Julie Hesmond. Amazing.
Because some of the stuff she does, what she's done for Oldham, what she did for the Coliseum in Oldham as well. She's just amazing. But who would you have around your dinner table?
How many we're going for?
Well, it depends how many people you want to cook for. I don't know. Are you a cook?
I do like cooking, but I do like cooking.
Okay. Let's say you're going to have 4 people.
The kids will just say that's a lie, actually.
You're going to fish finger sandwiches.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many?
4 plus you.
4 plus me. It's so tough.
Yeah. You could offend a lot of people here,
this is a problem. This is a problem, and I don't want to offend anybody because there's not been one person that I've not actually connected with and learned so much from on the podcast. A couple of people that stand out for me would be Gary, for sure. But then 2 female community leaders who blew my socks off, and I was very, very moved by talking to them, was Erin Mabel, Professor Erin Mabel, Northern leader. And she and I had tried to connect, had connected, life had got in the way. And then this is the whole power of Manchester. I was on her table at the Northern Leaders, and straight away she said, of course, I'll come on.
And the thing about her, for the benefit of the listeners, is that she witnessed gun crime literally in front of her.
My friend was shot 12 times in front of her.
That's right. And she said, I have to do something about this. And she's devoted her life. And I think I'm right in saying that, I think it's Manchester Art Gallery, isn't it? Where there's a piece of artwork which has been created using old guns.
53 melted down guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's stunning. But her story, her self-sacrifice, she risked her family's life. She risked her own safety because back then in Moss Side, there was absolutely no bridge between GMP and the community. And she knew that she had to create a conversation, they were never going to get anywhere. But so she was dealing with prejudice from the police, she was dealing with being called a snitch and what's the
Well, there's a derogatory
betraying.
term.
Betraying the community, and so much so that her mum, who lived in Jamaica, they went on holiday to Jamaica, and her mum said to her, "Why don't just leave the kids with me for their safety?" Because they'd been pulled off the streets, had gunshots outside their house, and she left her kids with her mum for a couple of years because she said it wasn't crucial to their education. They were in the system here, so that she could keep them safe, but also dedicate her life to making that change. I mean,
imagine doing that yourself. Depending your own kids.
As a mother, that's just so difficult to even imagine.
Yeah. So that's okay.
That's one.
So you got two. You got Gary,
Professor Bell. I'd have Fegan Murray.
Yeah.
So Fegan Murray is the mother of Martin Hett, who was tragically killed in the arena attack, and she changed her life on the back of that to campaign for safe venues.
Yeah. I always think that sometimes in absolute adversity, when people are at their absolute lowest, that's the moment you see the real character of people stand up, especially in Manchester.
Yeah. I
mean, because there have been plenty of tragedies. The Manchester, the arena bombing being the obvious one as well. And, and I'm not from Manchester, but I remember feeling such pride, feeling such anger at the time, still do. One of the victims, the youngest victim, she lived 2 miles from me, and her parents ran the chip shop. You see all these flowers outside the chip shop, this massive ripple effect. But they come together and it's inspiring. So your fourth person around you're not telling what you're cooking yet, but your fourth person would be...
I think John Thompson.
John Thompson, cold feet.
Cold feet. He's been on it twice actually, because when my mum found out that I'd had him on the podcast, like she's his favourite person.
Yeah.
He's her favourite person, and so John said, "Well, let's do another one and get your mum." So my mum came on the podcast to ask him some questions. But he's just so funny. He's so upbeat. He's got so many stories, and we just did something with him recently at Versa Studios for Allied, which is the old Granada Studios, where he took journalists down memory lane in the studios, and the stories he's got is amazing.
Wasn't he adopted?
Yes, he was.
He was, yeah. And
Preston.
An amazing life. But my daughter had he spoke, I think, to my daughter, aspiring actress, and he's just the nicest guy. Literally, he could have been anybody. No airs and graces. I mean, would you not have people that you don't like on your podcast? On This City Is Ours podcast. Or we built this city. We built this city.
That's what he calls it.
Have you got another podcast similar to that? Yeah, we built this city. Because I think with the Northern Leaders, I'm not the only judge for the the Northern Leaders list or the Northern Leaders podcast. But when I interview people, I want to interview people that I like. I don't want to give airtime to people that I don't like as well. Are you the sort of person who, you're not 23 anymore, you want to champion good people who are trying to make the world a better place?
Yeah.
So would you have people you don't like on
Not on We Built This City, because it's the whole point of We Built This City is about relationships, values, and legacy of Greater Mancunians. So in my view, they've all done amazing things.
Yeah.
I have got another podcast which we'll pick up again called Lobster Brain, which is about rewiring your brain. And we've had some very challenging people on that, which you don't necessarily have to like, because it's about what's going on in their mind. So it's a different premise.
Do you find yourself, and asking for a friend, Lisa, but do you find yourself having to do lots of different things because you enjoy the variety of what you do? Yeah. If you just did one thing, you'd get bored, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same. But it means that you're constantly on the go and you're constantly doing different things. Okay. I want to talk to you about one more question before we ask you the two final killer questions we always ask on the Northern Leaders podcast. Talk to you about values in business. So before you came in, you gave me a book, because I'm always using up these notebooks. And you get these notebooks, but yours is a bit different as well, because you've got the values, the Roland Dransfield values at the front. One of them is sweep the sheds. Be proud to share the responsibility, no matter how small. The next one you've got a load of asterisks in, which is no D, asterisk, 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 S. Character and talent will get you through the door, but integrity will keep you there. That's your second one. I won't read them all. Be prepared to win so that we can win. Make quality a habit. Leaders create leaders. Take responsibility, because successful teams have leaders throughout their ranks. So what are your values? Don't list them, but what are your values and why are they so important, to your business?
Well, integrity is the thing for me. And, do what you say you're going to do when you said you'll do it, the way you said you'll do it. And I get that it's not always possible, but if you approach life and work with that goal, that's integrity. And then we have a value which is admit it, fix it, move on. Because I want a space, with kids or with your people that you work with, we've got to make mistakes because we're only moving forward if we make mistakes. And I often find that if you recognize a mistake and you look at how you can improve on that, the outcome's better than it was before the mistake. So, but the reason I put values in to the business, and that was in 2018, and that was a collaborative process with the team, is that I realized when we went for fast growth before COVID, people joined the team at a senior level that may come with different values. Well, they did come with different values. And I sometimes found myself going home and feeling really sad or feeling really frustrated because they were conflicting with how I wanted to show up in the world. So we did this whole value piece with the team. And interestingly, Sweep the Sheds is from Legacy, which is about the All Blacks, book by James Curt. Incredible book if anyone listening hasn't read it. But it meant that you didn't have to be subjective. You didn't have to say anymore in the team, I don't like how you're doing that. That doesn't suit me. It's like, people, these are our values. It's on the wall. No dickheads. You can't walk past a 2-foot sign saying no dickheads 10 times a day if you're being one. And that relates to all of us. So for me, and those values got us through COVID because we all knew how we wanted to show up, even though the world was falling around our ears. And that I would say that our values are our brand now. It's very, very important to me and our team as a business.
What I find interesting, though, is that you've operated on a basis of these are your rules, these are your values. When did you write down your values so that everybody else knew what your values were?
In 2018, we did that whole piece of work together. And then that became it's our mantra. And people say, there's 15 values, there's loads. But when you get a chance afterwards, when you read them, they tell a story and they'll follow. And my favourite value there is plant trees you'll never see, which is create a legacy for people who follow. And so much of the work we do is purpose-driven. We work with purpose-driven businesses who also have similar values to us.
I love that phrase, plant trees that you'll never see, because somebody else will benefit from your hard work. That's the brilliant analogy. You also made a really good point when we were talking about people you'd have at a dinner party and, leaders that you admire, because I'm going to ask you that question in a minute. And you said, you're going to ask me about a female. And actually, you're going to suggest a female. Steph Horton, who was the Northern leader, is amazing. And somebody else that I really like, it's not because I like female sport and women's football, Jill Scott I think she's, in terms of, got the coffee business, but everybody that I know, whether you're seeing her on TV or whether you're speaking to her in a coffee shop, said, what a nice person.
Yeah.
What Steph Horton's, endured during her life and her career and come out the side and continues is amazing. So you're absolutely right. And we in the media have to constantly have our feet held to the fire and say, what about, and actually, as long as you can give a good answer back, why haven't you got any female speakers on this panel? Because I was turned down by the 7 that I asked, and I tried to get more. The facts are what the facts are. These are our 2 questions at the end, and we've sort of touched on one, which is leaders, but so you're not allowed to mention any ones that you mentioned already.
Oh, I've given you them all.
Yeah, okay. Are there any Northern leaders that you particularly admire, except the ones you've already mentioned?
I really admire Joanne Roney, who has now gone to Birmingham. So she was a CEO of Manchester City Council, and she's gone to BMD at Birmingham now, which is where she's from, where she started her career. And for me, I worked really closely with her and Bev in the pandemic when we did a lot of work around how we created better opportunities for young people. And Joanne was probably one of the first people back in Manchester City Centre when there was virtually nobody in there. And she set up an office on the corner of Albert Square in Piccolino, so she could see people. So she was there and she could see people who were coming into the city and welcome them and start those conversations. And that impressed me so much. I thought she absolutely is walking the talk here. So I was, and I'm still in touch with Joanne now. She's gone to Birmingham. First day she was in her job at Birmingham City Council as an apprentice at 16 years old in the housing team. They opened the doors and someone threw a dead rat at her head. So that's a woman who has got huge resilience, and I admire very much.
Somebody, you mentioned that story, and I love that story. Somebody that I had a similar experience with was Steve Rumbelow, who was the chief exec at Rochdale Council. And during COVID, he was in the office, a huge office. And it was a bit like, you know, The Night at the Museum, starring Ben Stiller, that. Just before Rochdale went into, the world went into COVID and the lockdown, they'd got this huge dinosaur in their in the building, so people would come and see it. It was really, really popular. And I went to meet him, and honestly, there was me, him, and a dinosaur in this huge building. And I just thought, so he wanted to be there because it was important. He didn't need to be there, and he didn't tell the world, "Look at me, I'm here." He didn't take a selfie. He was just there. So okay, you put her down, and also she had a tough shoes to fill, didn't she? And a tough act to follow into Howard Bernstein. But she also was quite high profile on Twitter, as was. I thought she used social media really well. Anybody else you'd mention in terms of leaders you admire? Or do you want to go to the final question about what you want your epitaph to be?
Oh, I forgot you and asked me that one.
Well, absolutely. You've got a second. You've got a second to think. You've got a second to think.
Let me think. What we do? Are we doing that one?
Well, you can ask if you've got any more leaders that you want to name check.
Well, another leader I would say early on in the podcast is in lockdown was Mary Ellen McTague.
Yeah.
Eat Well, and she basically galvanised a whole team of people who she couldn't pay to create meals to deliver to vulnerable people. And she was one of the first people in the hospitality sector to really go, okay, and the hospitality sector was the most compromised sector, I think, for a very long time, as we know. And yet she was out there, true leadership. You know, people were just digging in and making sure that we were looking after people that were vulnerable. And I thought that was amazing.
Okay, now tell me 3 people you don't like.
I ain't doing that.
No, I know you're not. And nor would I. Okay, so many, many, many years from now, okay, when people are looking back at your legacy, which is a hard question, what would you want your epitaph to be?
Out of office.
Well, you absolutely would be out of office.
I am going to go out of office. Thank you for your email. It take me some time to get back to you. I've never put an out of office on. Yeah. So other than that, I just think was it Spike Milligan who had on his gravestone? Yeah, I told you I was ill. Yeah, you know. I think we have a laugh in one of my friendship group about those. Wherever we go, we take those pictures of those really horrendous signs, like in BM and stuff, like live, laugh, love, and all that stuff. But I think you know, she lived a lot. She loved a lot. I think that's probably would do it for me. Okay. Lisa, many, many years from now, we'll be seeing that epitaph. Okay. Thanks very much to Lisa Morton. Time for a quick break. When we come back, I'll be discussing how that interview went. Business Cloud provides tech insight with Byte. To get the best business tech news straight into your inbox, just subscribe to our free newsletter. Details on our website. Well, welcome back to the Northern Leaders podcast. Just interviewed Lisa Morton. Not sure she didn't interview me, actually. Probably would have done a much better job. What I find really fascinating about these podcasts is you find out stuff about people you didn't know before as well. And that line that she used about her values and the value that she sort of holds dearest is that plant trees that you'll never see. And I think that's such a descriptive way of her approach to life as well. I think it's too easy to do stuff, you know, too easy to plant trees that you'll benefit from, but you're never going to benefit from these trees. But the next generation and the generation after that will. And I think that sums up Lisa's approach as well. I think she, she's somebody who uses her experiences to help the next generation as well. And as I mentioned before, she's got an incredible black book. She's incredibly well connected. And also she's authentic as well. That's very much why she is a Northern leader. And I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing her / being interviewed by her. And one day,
Maybe not now, maybe sometime in the future, I'll get the call to appear on her podcast, but who knows? That's all for this episode of the Northern Leaders podcast. Thank you to our sponsor, Open Rain, a training business that harnesses the power of AI to deliver human-led training. That's the sponsor for this 21st century. Thank you to What Media for producing this podcast and turning these ramblings into the podcast that you are listening to. And please give the podcast a 5-star rating and tell all your friends. That's all from me, Chris Maguire. Thank you.